Hi, I'm Dr. Bear, and I'm going to give you a tutorial on making your very first web page. It's going to be very, very simple, but it will be a web page. So here's what we'll talk about. We'll start with HTML5, the very basic language of the World Wide Web. There are also a couple of other languages that are standard and widely used in most web pages, but HTML5 is good enough to get you started and into the basics. I'm working on a Mac. We'll use the Nano text editor. This is very text-based, so if you haven't seen my tutorial on files and the terminal, please watch that. It'll give you some nice background for this. Like I said, we're going to be on Mac OS X, so much of this will apply directly to Unix and Linux systems because Mac is Unix. If you're on a Windows machine, however, the underlying principles are going to be the same. The HTML file that we'll build will have the same structure, but you'll need a different text editor. So without further ado, let's get started. HTML5, or simply HTML, is the standard basic language of the World Wide Web. HTML files are simply text files, and so all you need is a text editor to begin writing a web page. And so really all an HTML file is text that describes to an application or a program, like specifically a web browser, like Safari or Chrome. It instructs the web browser on how to display the page, the web page, and where to get the information that it's going to store on the page. So one thing I need to point out is the page that we're going to make will likely exist only on your computer or my computer, and no one else will have access to this page. The way to give others access to this page so they can point their browser to it is to host it on what we call a web server. This is another computer that you'll have to copy your file to. When you set this up, whoever's hosting your web page for you should give you instructions on how to upload it and what your web address is going to be. So without further ado, let's get started. So I'm going to go to another screen, and I'm going to start off by making a terminal, or calling up a terminal. Okay, so here's my terminal. I'll just check my present working directory. Okay, so this is my home directory. And I'm going to start off by creating a folder for this work. So I'm making a folder, my web page. I'm going to change to that folder. I use tab completion. And if I say pwd, okay, we're looking in my web page. The first thing is to create a text file. One text editor that we can use in the terminal is Nano. So I'll just type Nano. And then the screen here changes. It says, okay, we're using this Nano program. And at this point, I can just begin typing. So let's start off by typing the basic required parts of an HTML document. So first off, I need these angled brackets, so the less than and the greater than sign. And I first need to put doc type and then HTML. And this is required for every web page because this tells a text browser this is HTML, so you need to process it as such. The next thing we need to do is use the angled brackets, and we'll put HTML, and then we need to pair it with a /HTML. Now these together, these things in angled brackets are called tags, and they're paired. There's the HTML tag and then the /HTML tag. So these define an HTML element, and the first one is the beginning of the element, the end one is the end of the element, and so every web page needs the doc type and then this HTML element. The HTML element is going to be where we're going to place all the content of our web page. So making this very simply, I'm just going to type hello world. So anyone who's done any programming knows that's the very first program that you write. So this will be the very first web page that you write. But I'm going to modify it slightly. We're going to write hello World Wide Web. And then to save it, we use the commands down here. So the ~O is what we're going to use, write out. It means we're going to save our file. The ~O means use Control and then the O key. So let me just bring up my keyboard viewer so you can see that. So here's my keyboard viewer, and I'm going to now click on my terminal, and then I'm going to use the Control-O, and then it says, okay, I need to write a file name, so let's call this index.html. So HTML tells us and the browser that this is an HTML file. Index generally is the name of the first file that the web browser is going to look for when you point it to your website. So index.html is a great name for your file. And I hit enter, and then I'm going to type Control X for exit. And just to show you what's happened here, let's type ls. And now in our folder, my web page, we have the file that we created, index.html. Now I'll just point out also, I can view it again if I type nano and then ind and tab completion, hit enter. There's our file. I can Control X. There are a couple other ways to view it. So I like the less command, so less and then index.html, and then it displays it here. I think I need to hit Q to quit the less program. There's our file. Let's also open it in a browser. So to do that, I start my Finder, and I'm going to navigate to the folder. Let's see, here's my home directory. So I'm going to find here, I'm going to look for my folder that I made. It's called My Web Page, so there it is. I click on it, and then there's the index.html file. If I double click it on my Mac is going to open up Safari, and then it's going to show you this web page. And in fact, here is the web page that we just created. It says Hello World Wide Web! Exclamation point. The address here, if it were looking at an external file, it would usually be http:// but since it's a file on my computer, it's file : well, actually just // the first / is the root folder, and then we spell out the path to the file, and then index.html. So there's our very first web page. We can make a few subtle improvements to it. So I'm going to close this, and I'm going to go back here, and I'm going to open my nano file again. I'm going to point out that there are better text editors, but this is a simple one to start with. In fact, maybe at the end of this tutorial I will show you a better one. We'll put in, everything needs to be in this HTML tag, so I'll put in here a head. So this is like the header for the document, /head. Let's also put in a title. Notice I like to, when I put in a tag, I like to close it off with the end tag before I do anything else. So I did the head and the title. Let's type in here my first web page, and let's put the Hello World Wide Web in another tag set, body. The body indicates to the browser that that's the content of the web page that we want to see, and then the head will be the title of the web page. So let me just do Control O for the write out, and then I will Control X to exit. And let's go back to the Finder and double click the web page. Hello World Wide Web. I can't see the header. I'm going to bring up a new tab here. What happened here with the new tab is you can see one tab has the title Yahoo Search, Web Search, and then my tab says My First Web Page. So that was the point of the title and the head. Okay, last thing I wanted to show you is other text editors can help make your coding a little bit easier. So this nano thing is kind of user unfriendly because it's all text-based. There's another one I downloaded. I can't remember if it's proprietary, so like I had to buy it, or whether it's open source, but it's Sublime Text. So I'm just going to open. Okay, so I'm going to my personal space here on the computer. I'm going to find the thing we just did, my web page, index.html. The keywords like doc type and the tag names HTML, they're highlighted in a different color. That's what we call syntax highlighting. And as a programmer, that's really helpful because it just helps you see what's going on faster. It helps your brain interpret what you need to change. Syntax highlighting is very, very helpful, and that's one reason to get something like Sublime Text. That's all I have for today. Like I said, no one else can see your web page if it only exists on your computer, and your computer is not a web server. So to make this useful, you have to buy service or something like that, get a web provider. If you're a student at a university, generally are provided with free web hosting, or you can go to something like fatcow.com and then buy a contract for a year. By the way, I'm in no way endorsing Fat Cow, but they're just the one that comes to mind right now. Thanks for watching. If you found this helpful, please like the video, subscribe to the channel. In a coming tutorial, we will add a picture to our very, very simple rudimentary web page. This is a very, very simple web page. It's not really all that cool, but one thing that it does is it helps you really understand what's going on under the hood with these web pages, and it's also a very gentle introduction to computer programming. All right, thanks again. Have a really great day. Bye.